भगवान श्री योगी रामसूरतकुमार की जय। सर्वं योगी रामसूरतकुमारार्पणमस्तु। This evening twilight is very special for worship, and we have been blessed by Bhagwan to be able to gather here in his powerful shrine and to sing his name. Which is no small grace. Let us make a celebration of this grace thankfully, and we have offered it at the feet of Bhagwan. Now before we go on to submit today's prayer, we shall see again today how a particular devotee of Mahapariva has been inspired by the Nama of Bhagwan, by the Leelas of Bhagwan, and how he slowly entered into her life and started governing it. Now Srimati from Chennai, she says she has been a very ardent devotee of Mahapariva, Shri-Kanchi Paramacharya, whom Bhagwan adores. Shri-Kanchi Mahapariva had a lot of anushtanam. He was a Mathathipati, a very orthodox Mathathipati, and was observing all the regimen meant for the head of this month. Whereas Bhagwan hardly ever took bath. Those 40 years, very few times he had had bath. And Bhagwan was roaming in the streets as a beggar, living a very independent life. He was like one of those avadhuts, very unpredictable ones. You would never know what he would say next, what he would do next. And he lived in the streets under a tree, the common haunts of beggars. They were far removed, Shri-Kanchi Paramacharya and Bhagwan, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, in their styles of living and functioning. Yet, there was absolute oneness between the two. They had such great love and veneration for each other and felt one. Now, Gomati, been worshipping so much, Shri-Kanchi Paramacharya, she says she came to hear about Bhagwan Avindan, and in those 10 years, she has visited the ashram twice, and not particularly drawn to Bhagwan. One day, after she finished her puja to Mahapariva with Ashtotra Shatam, she came, and when she switched on the phone, she came across this YouTube where she saw a picture of Mahapariva and Yogi Ramsuratkumar together. Now naturally she was drawn to it and she went ahead, switched it on, and she found the talk about Maitrim Bhajata, how Kanchi Paramacharya composed it, and that was sung in the world platform of UNO by Srimati Subbulakshmi for world peace. It was a great lyric written specially for the universal brotherhood and harmony of the world. So as I went on explaining this, she felt very much drawn to Bhagwan, and she remembered that many devotees of Shri Jnananandagiri Swami of Tirukkovilur and J. Krishnamurti and quite a few people she knew of great caliber. And then she understood that they were all one, manifestations of one Shakti, Mahashakti, and that there was absolutely no difference between one great master and the other, except in the form and the Leelas. And each one is meant for a certain cross-section of people with certain set of beliefs. God is infinite and He manifests in infinite ways. There is never any repetition. But there is oneness, underlying unity behind the diversity. Now, Gomathi also came to hear that Yogi Ramsuratkumar often came in the form of butterflies. She was fascinated by the idea, and now that she was quite drawn to Bhagwan, she began to listen to the morning satsangs, the morning Nama-Sankirtan and satsangs regularly. She says she would switch it on 6 o'clock, and then she would start her daily core while singing with all of us Bhagwan's Nama. And she found this very, very inspiring for her. And she also wanted a picture of Bhagwan, but then she said to Bhagwan, look, I will not take one from the internet, nor will I go to a shop to buy it. You have to bless me with it. After offering this prayer, she has been waiting. Now, she says she has been living in that colony in one of the apartments for the past 7 years. It all started for her only this April 29th. She had never observed butterflies, though of course there are trees there in that compound. She never bothered to look for them also. But then after coming into the circle of Bhagwan, she began to observe. And to her great surprise and wonder, many, many butterflies she could see even at distant gardens and in her own colony. And she said, while she was driving to the office, she would be chanting the name. And when she enters the office, there's quite a little space of garden between the building and the gate. And she would observe butterflies on the way. But one day, she was busy with her phone, talking to somebody. She forgot to chant the mantra, Yogi Ramsuratkumar. She says that day when she entered the gate, when she entered the office, she could not see one single butterfly. And suddenly it struck her that she has not been chanting. And then she stood there on the way to the building and started chanting. She chanted for 5 minutes and suddenly she found quite a few butterflies going round. Just see how things work. She says when her son had to go to Coimbatore, she was very worried because it was the second wave, severe corona period. It was a devastating wave and she was naturally worried about her son. And she could not go with him. So she began to chant Yogi Ramsuratkumar Nama and pray, please be with him, protect him. And as she was chanting and chanting for his sake, there was a call from her son from Coimbatore to say that when he was watering, that he had gone for doing some repair work of their own house there. When he was watering the plants there, he found a butterfly going round and round. It was going round him. And then she knew that Bhagwan was with him and that he would take care. So she continued at every level, every incident of life. The minute you start chanting and praying, there is a ready response from Bhagwan to assure you quickly, not to worry, not to be afraid, I'm there, I'm here with you. She visited one of the relatives there, and whenever they met, whenever she visited, there was never any talk of Yogi Ramsuratkumar at all. But that time particularly, as soon as she entered, she saw a book, The Gambit of Grace by Professor Karunakaran, and she was drawn to it. Then the relative said he got it from one of the friends there at the ashram. And he also said he had met Bhagwan twice. So the talk was all about Yogi Ramsuratkumar this time, to her surprise. She was very happy with the book. And then she was hearing me saying, no, every day we offer a prayer at the end of the satsang. Now that inspired her to do the chanting for the sake of the COVID patients. She decided that she would do the chanting for 21 days, each day 21 times, purely for the sake of the COVID patients. So as she was chanting, when she finished, she had a doubt whether the chant that she made would reach out to those people, would help them at all. Now that particular day when she had a doubt, in the satsang in the ashram, I was mentioning about the wife singing the name from the house because she could not reach the husband, and the husband in a separate hospital far away heard the chanting of the name. In another incident, one could recall that happened in Virudhunagar, when the husband had lost his consciousness and was in serious condition. The wife and the other devotees were chanting Yogi Ramsuratkumar Nama, standing around him, and slowly he came back to consciousness. And he said that he heard this Nama. The Nama brought him back to to consciousness. So all this made her understand that the Nama that we chant for a particular purpose will surely reach out and work for that purpose. So here she says she would end up the whole thing, narration, with one humorous incident. She says one day when she was there in the house, it was about 2 o'clock, 2 a.m., early morning, when she was fast asleep, suddenly she heard the cacophony of the birds' noise. There were so many birds near her apartment on a tree, and they were all shouting at a time. Naturally, her sleep was disturbed, and she was irritated. And the irritation continued. And that day morning, when she switched on the satsang, I was telling everybody how the devotees were sitting around Bhagwan one evening in the garden of a house, the Kripa house. And Shri Raja had come to see Bhagwan. He sang a song, a very sweet song, which filled everybody with great elation. And then soon it was followed by a very sweet silence. In the vibrant presence of Bhagwan, everybody fell into a natural, deep, vibrant silence. It was the dusk time. All of a sudden, from somewhere, a crow cried out. It was very discordant, a jargon which disturbed, which tore through the silence, hitting everybody with a force that they did not expect, and everybody was startled and shocked. And naturally, some of us were angry, some of us resented this call of the bird, the untimely call. Suddenly, Bhagwan smiled and said, "Did you all hear my father's sweet music?" Now, as soon as he said it, you can imagine what happened. Such was the power of the word that came from his divinity. Instantly, we realized what he meant. One moment, it was a discordant, disturbing note, which we resented because it cut our silence cruelly. The next minute, he dropped the sentence, "It's my father's sweet music," and laughed. I still cannot believe how everything changed after that. At one moment, suddenly everybody felt the truth of his statement. Can you believe it? Such is the power of these great people. One word. They live in the house of God all the time. Whatever they say comes straight from God. And such was the power that what was a very disturbing cry changed into Father's sweet music for everyone. A magic moment, the magic of his words. So this is what I was describing that particular day. And then she knew it was Bhagwan's answer to her. How irritated she was, how angry she was with those birds. And suddenly she knew how to look upon it. It is the change of attitude which is called a transformation. When there is a shift in our consciousness, a little shift towards God, in our consciousness, you would see how wonderfully everything changes. So all that we need, the same life which we think is a definite hell, could change in a minute into one of a sweet heaven, if only we could change our attitude to life. If you begin to look upon everything as an expression of the one divinity, then it could only be a blessing to us. And the minute you think it's a blessing, it fills you with peace and joy. And what freedom! When you begin to submit to the will of God from moment to moment to moment, knowing that it is God who is playing everybody's role, every creature's role. He is playing the role of an ant, he is playing the role of a stone, he is playing the role of all the plants and trees. He is the fire, he is the wind, he is the earth, he is the Akash. It is he, my Father alone exists. There is nothing else, no one else. What could it possibly mean? That he has become all these forms, he has become all these names, and it is his role play from creature to creature. So when you look at life with this attitude, with a shift in your consciousness, to look upon everything as an expression of the one divinity, the one who throws abuse at you, the one who heaps praises on your head. They would be the same, both only Father. This morning I recalled how Bhagwan, when he described his life in the streets, he said the life was so hard, he would say, Devaki, you cannot spend a day in the streets like that, even a day. Such was the hardship. But then he said, Devaki, everything is Father's grace. Sometimes this beggar would get some sumptuous food offered by a friend, and sometimes this beggar wouldn't get anything at all to eat, not even a cup of tea, for 2 days, 3 days. And he said how once when he stood before a tea stall, begging for a cup of tea, they threw the hot water on him. When he described, he laughed and said, Devaki, it's all Father's grace. It's by It's by Father's grace. This beggar did not get anything to eat, not even a cup of tea. But Devaki, believe me, it is Father's grace. When shall we ever be able to say that? But this is what we have to learn from Kanchi Paramacharya, Bhagwan Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Papa Ramdas, Bhagwan Raman Maharishi, all these great people have lived their life, they have lived their teachings and showed beyond doubt that it's possible for every one of us